The Andy Griffith Show, starring Andy Griffith. With Ronnie...
Well, welcome, YouTube friends and family, to the very first edition of what I'm calling Mayberry Memories, where we'll be cooking recipes from Aunt Bee's Mayberry Cookbook. So for those of you who may be interested in the cookbook, I will drop a link below to my Amazon affiliate store. The spiral bound, like I have, is about $16. They do have a hardcover version. It has a different front cover. Not sure if the recipes are the same. That was $14.29. So I'll drop that below if you're interested. So I have always loved the Andy Griffith Show. And I think one of the reasons I was so attracted to the show is because my father, who passed away 10 years ago, I've always thought looked very much like a blonde version of Andy Griffith, and he had a very Southern accent, so he spoke very much like Andy Griffith spoke on the show. So I wanted to share a little picture here. This is my dad, obviously. This is my mom. This is their engagement picture. My mom was 15. My dad was 18. He was drafted, so they did get married before he went into the service. They were married for 60 years. I didn't come along till, I don't know, 10 or so years later. My sister's 4 years older than I am, but they had a wonderful marriage, and my dad was truly a wonderful man. But he loved the Andy Griffith Show as well. Loved the simple country cooking, country life. So this is partly in honor of Andy Griffith and partly in memory of my dad. So one thing I wanted to share, I have the Andy Griffith Complete Reference book, because it's not like I haven't watched every episode like 100 times, but I was looking at it this morning and I realized I misspoke. The show actually began in 1960 when he was a guest to sort of kick off a pilot on the Danny Thomas Show. And on the pilot, he played a rube sheriff, or a dishonest sheriff, that pulled Danny Thomas over for speeding and kept racking up charges because he was offending Andy Griffith in the show. So it's a really cute pilot. But as you know, it has remained on TV ever since then. So we're up to, what, 61 years now that it's been in reruns as well. So as we go along, I will share some trivia questions with you just for fun. But today I thought we would make something that every good Southerner needs to know how to make, and also something that was served on the Andy Griffith Show, especially when they had beans, and that is Blue Ridge Mountain Cornbread. So let me swing you down here. I've kind of started preparing. So this is a little different recipe than what I normally would use. When I think of cornbread, I think of buttermilk cornbread. This particular recipe is a little bit different, so we're going to be trying it together. So in my oven, which I have preheated to 450, I've placed a cast iron skillet. And inside that cast iron skillet, I have placed some liquid gold. So this was actually part of my mom's canister set. The rest is on the top of my refrigerator when they went to housekeeping, so in the 50s. And this is full of delicious, bad for you bacon grease. So I put, probably a tablespoon, maybe just a little bit more. You could also use lard or just oil, olive oil even, but you want that skillet well greased, and you want that oil or fat very hot, because that's what makes that delicious crispy crust. So what I have already done is I have taken 2 eggs and I have separated the yolks and the whites. And you actually beat the whites till pretty stiff peaks form. So I'm going to set this aside because we're going to work on the batter and then fold in the egg whites at the end. So to the egg yolks, we want to add 2 teaspoons of sugar. Now, I don't know about you all, but I grew up eating what we called bitter cornbread. So it was not sweet at all, like cake, but I like it both ways. So here's my 2 teaspoons of sugar. And I'm just using my Danish whisk here. I did beat the egg whites with a hand mixer as well. All right, to that we're going to add a cup of cornmeal. Now what I happen to have on hand is yellow cornmeal that comes from our local mill near where I live in the next town over. So they have really delicious cornmeal. And I'm going to use half cup measures just because it's a little easier to get in here. So you'll want to level those off. Thankfully, cornmeal is pretty easy just to shake off the cup. So there's our cup of cornmeal. And next, a cup of just plain milk. You can use fat-free up to whole, doesn't matter. The higher the percentage of fat, of course, the richer the cornbread is going to be. So we will stir that up. So we have a pretty thin batter here, but we're not done adding because we need to add some flour as well. So we need to add a cup of all-purpose flour sifted. So if you're not really into cooking from scratch, you may wonder, do I sift the flour, then measure it, or do I measure it and then sift it? So if the recipe says 1 cup of sifted flour, you sift it and then measure it. If it says 1 cup of flour sifted, you measure it, then sift it. So in this case, it is 1 cup of flour sifted. So we are going to measure out our flour and then sift it. So here is our half cup. I would love to have a sifter that would like hang on the edge of the bowl. I think it would just be so much easier. Because every time you sit the sifter down, if it has anything in it, flour goes everywhere. Okay, so that's half cup. Set it over here on the paper towel. We'll get our second half cup. And sift that in as well. So when we finish with the cornbread, I'm going to do just a brief update on No Spin January and just share a couple things with you. So I hope you're all doing well, sticking with your meal planning. Okay, let me kind of stir this in. You can see it's getting much thicker. And I have to tell you, I'm really loving these Danish whisks. Where it comes in so handy is if you're stirring something where you don't want to break up, let's say it has fruit or whole nuts or chocolate chips and you don't want to smash them. It's really nice for that. So this is a super thick batter. So to that, we are going to add 2 tablespoons of melted butter. And now we need to add the things that will make it rise, which is 3 teaspoons of baking powder. So 3 teaspoons equals a tablespoon. So I'm just going to use a tablespoon here. And then finally a pinch of salt. So let me sit this out of the way so it doesn't end up on the floor. And we will just put in a pinch of salt. So give that a bit of a stir. And then the final thing we're going to do is fold in those egg whites. So this is really a thick batter for cornbread. So I'm hoping those egg whites really lighten it up here. So let's see. They should. So cornbread is one of my go-to favorite breads. It's, you know, something I grew up on and I just love it. I love cornbread. I love corn muffins. I like it sweet. I like it savory. But this, with only having 2 teaspoons of sugar, even though it is yellow cornmeal, which is naturally a little bit sweeter, I do believe that this will be a bit more on the savory side, especially with that delicious bacon grease I put in the pan. I wonder why my cholesterol is high. Okay, so we have a pretty thick batter, honestly. But we are going to take our pan out of the oven. Let me put a hot pad on the counter so I don't scorch the countertop. Oh yeah. So be very careful that you don't burn yourself on that hot pan. And what I'm gonna do is just plop this into the pan, and then I'm gonna use a spatula to kind of spread it around. This isn't going to be a super thick or tall cornbread, but oh, it's gonna be good. And you can hear it sizzling as it hits that hot pan, making that delightfully crunchy crust. So I'm pretty excited about the cornbread. So drop me a comment below. Do you all like cornbread? Is this something that you would like to try? I'm really interested to see how beating up the egg whites, what it does to the texture, I guess, of the cornbread, if it makes it lighter, because cornbread is generally a fairly dense bread. All right, so I'm pretty happy with that. Scrape off the ends of the cornbread. And we're gonna put this in the oven at 450 until golden and done. So I'm gonna pop it in the oven. I will bring you back and let you know how long it took. I'm thinking probably a minimum of 25 minutes, maybe a little bit longer, but I'll let you know in just a few minutes. Well, our delicious cornbread is nicely golden brown. My oven is a bit slow, but it was 23 minutes, and you can see the edges here are nicely browned as well. So I'll give it a taste test and have to let you know how it is, but it smells absolutely amazing. So stay tuned a moment, and we're going to finish up today's episode by talking a little bit about No Spin January. I thought we'd finish up our session today by talking a little bit about No Spin January. How's it going? This is the official end of week 1. So we've gone through 7 days, and I'm going to show you my pigs. So what you're going to notice here is one of my pigs isn't colored in. So here's the reason why, and it's gonna sound like I'm justifying, but I didn't color in the pig. So on an earlier video, I shared with you that I've been doing some sewing, and I had shared this canning mat that I made and put a batting in of Insulbright, which is a heat-resistant batting that will protect your counter, great for putting hot canning jars on. Well, after that video, so many of you reached out to me and said, wow, are you gonna sell those? I really like them, I'd like to have one. So because of that, I decided that I was going to purchase some supplies so that I could make some additional canning mats. And I'm also making some double-ended hot mitts and some mini hot mitts. During the month, this month, I'm not going to tempt anybody for No Spin January. In the meantime, after doing that, you all know that I produce soap for a subscription box, and the lady reached out to me, and instead of the usual 50 box order, she actually wants 2 products and 75 of them. Right after that, one of my dear friends who orders a 3-pound custom loaf periodically also needs soap. So I'm going to be making a lot of soap. So hopefully I can get back to my sewing as well. So one of the things I'm hoping to do is to bring you along for the two soaps. One is a fancy, highly colored soap that looks like camouflage. And the box order is Hand Balm, which we've already made, and a Gardener's Hand Soap, which is actually made with all natural ingredients, has seven different layers of things like lavender buds, walnut shells, or walnut powder, not shells, calendula, lots of essential oils. So I think it would be a great video for you to see and maybe even make, and I'll be able to share the recipe for that as well. So I hope you are doing well with No Spend January. As several of you sweet subscribers have said, you know, don't beat yourself up over it when you actually spend money on a day. I didn't plan ahead. I generally start my sales production in February, so I did not think about buying in January, but obviously I did. But I've done well. Otherwise, haven't fallen off the wagon too much. Shopped my closet again today. This sweater still had the tags on it. I'm so bad about that. So I found it in the closet, so I thought, I'll just wear that today. So drop me a comment below. Don't forget, if you haven't already, hit that like button. Make sure that you're still subscribed. You've rang the bell to be notified of all the new videos. But leave me a comment. How's No Spend January going? Are you in the mood now for some cornbread? I'm gonna actually cut a piece, put a little butter on it, and share with you how it is. So hang tight for just a moment. Well, here is my delicious piece of cornbread, and you know the first piece is always ugly when you try to get it out of the pan. And of course I had to put some delicious butter on it. But let's give it a taste. I can tell you it's deliciously crunchy on the bottom. Get a bigger bite. Maybe. Very, very, very good. Nice cornmeal taste to it. Maybe just a little drier than some of the cornbreads that I've had. I think if I were to make this again, I might up the butter. And also my eggs weren't super big, so I might even consider adding that third egg, but definitely delicious. And Blue Ridge Mountain Cornbread is a success. Let me try to show you though how lovely the crunchy bottom is. That's the best part. So I'm gonna eat my cornbread here. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. Be healthy, be well, be blessed, and I'll see y'all next week. Take care.